Hello everybody and welcome to Mindset Learn Extra. It is a beautiful Thursday afternoon and I'm sure that you guys had a brilliant week because I also had a fantastic one and I'm looking forward to learning more and learning extra of geography. And in studio joining us today is of course Dave. How are you, Dave?
I'm fine, and how are you, Pumi?
I'm very well,
you look
thank
very
you.
excited because it's geography.
Yes, I'm very excited.
The other subjects you're a bit dull, I notice. Hello, learners, how are you? And I'm hoping that you all got A's there for those papers.
Yes.
I know they did.
Yeah, they
Listening to our
definitely
program down here makes a big difference.
Definitely. I've learned so much today so far, and I'm really looking forward to learning a little bit more extra when it comes to geography. Because I really didn't.
Subject.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Of course. All right then, guys, if you are watching right now, please holler back right there on our Facebook page. It is, of course, www.facebook.com/learn extra. And here's another exciting thing about being part of this beautiful family is knowing that we just love giving you guys prizes. And speaking of prizes, right here, I have a cashier calculator. So if you want to get your hands on this, better make sure that you do enter the competition because it's closing on Tuesday at 8 a.m. So you really definitely want to be one of those people that get to walk away with it. So get all of your friends to like us on Facebook and even follow us right there on Twitter. It is @LearnExtra. Now with all of that has been said, let me just hand on over to Dave.
Okay, learners, let's get to the exciting part, the content. Remember, when you're at school, you make sure you go through those half-yearly papers, or some of you call it the midterm papers. It's extremely important because it gives you ideas. Remember, geography is a subject, if you just learn your content and not apply it, you're heading for problems. So make sure you go iron out all your problems so that you're ready for that prelim. But let's get on. We're going to look at some June exam questions, all right? The papers, we take one or two papers here and we look at certain questions. We look at the techniques on how to answer certain questions and to get an improvement in those marks. All right, so we're going to work through questions, which is your sort of climate questions, and we're going to work through your geomorphology questions, settlement geography. Those are the sections that you should have completed by now. All right, remember, focusing on different question answering skills and techniques, which are very, very important. Because many of our learners make mistakes in exams and they come out and say, whoa, I knew that, but I didn't read the question properly. So we don't want you to be one of those stats. All right, let's go on. Okay, let's look at the challenge question before we go to anything else. And I put a nice one today. I want you to think about it carefully. In the transition zone, there are many dilapidated buildings, those buildings that are broken and falling down to a certain extent, which are rented to the poor, generally to the poor. Neither the owners nor the occupants are interested in renovating these buildings. A very interesting thing that's happening here. All right. I want you to think, learners, and give me reasons for this. Why is no one renovating those buildings at the moment? Right? Think carefully, use the concept, and give you little tips here of what the transition zone is, what's going to happen to it in the future. Think about all that, and then answer the question. I'm hoping lots of you get it right by now. With all that experience, 100% of you should get it right. Okay, let's go on. Right. I took one of the papers, one of the questions from climate from one of your half-yearly papers of the provinces. And the first one I want to deal with, because people, learners, I don't know why some of you fear the synoptic map. And again, I'm going to emphasize, because I noticed this, and when I was moderating some other schools also, I noticed this popping up. Learners, you're still doing one little mistake. You're not listening to the instructions of the examiner. You know, some people, they say get trigger happy, you get question happy. You want to jump to the questions. All right, that could be due to nervousness. Please, if you go through the diagram, that's going to save you time because you work out so many answers. So The examiner says, refer to the synoptic weather map below and answer the questions. Then you refer to the synoptic map. So let's look at the synoptic map here, learners. What is it showing us? And I know you guys, as soon as you see the cold front, you think it's winter. Well, it may be right here. Remember, we have to look at the position of certain things. Okay, now, let's look at it. Yes, we do have a cold front. It's approaching Cape Town. It's very close. Okay, and it's quite huge. And we've got two of them here. Okay, so that could tell us, we're showing us a winter condition because it's approaching Cape Town. Secondly, if you study the position of your high pressure systems, you'll notice they are more towards the northerly position they are lifting. So therefore, it's allowing the cold front to come in. And northerly position of your high pressure systems is telling you it is winter. All right. Another factor that we look at in this diagram, and we look carefully here, we notice which pressure system dominates the land. It's a high pressure system. When do high pressure systems dominate? When it's cold and the air subsides. That is winter. When it's summer, it's a low pressure system because the heat, the temperature heats up the air and the air rises, creating a low pressure system. Is there anything else the examiner gives us here? Yes, he's giving us letters. E, what is he referring to? There's a system here. South Indian High. D is referring to the South Atlantic High. C, referring to the mid-latitude cyclone. A, referring to the warm front. Can you see the sign here? B, referring to the, that's a cold front, and B, the warm front. So mess up the diagram. I would have written all that S-I-H, you said, the South Indian High. Mess up the diagram. Now we're ready for the questions again. Okay, let's look at the questions. Can you see once again, learners, and almost every paper, if you revise any paper, lots of clues are given in the resource. So you worked out so many answers already, and it goes so much quicker. Let's look at it. Identify the season which is represented by the synoptic map. You worked it out already. Can you see how simple geography is?
Yeah, it is.
If you work out the resource.
Yeah.
Did you do geography in school?
No, I didn't.
But you
I wish
learned
I would
from it
have.
now, eh? Okay, so let's look at it here. The first one, you know already, it's winter. And there you have your 1 mark. Learners, please remember, it becomes 1 mark now, no more 2. Right, and you notice it from your paper. Let's go to the next one. Give a possible reason for your answer, and you worked that out already. And if you look at your synoptic map, you know, high pressure system dominates the land. All right, learners, please, we cannot mark there's a high pressure system. I do not like it. There's always a high pressure system. It just moves north and south. But when you say it dominates the land, means that it's predominantly over the land. There's very few low pressure systems. Okay, so make sure you mention that. Let's look at another one. Many learners write there's a cold front. And what about the cold front? There's always a cold front. It's either further north or further south. To make the answer correct, there's a cold front approaching the coastline of the Southwestern Cape or South Africa, etc., which makes it correct. The high pressure systems are in their northerly position. So we got quite a few answers, but we worked it out already. Let's look at them quickly. All right? And I'm trying to get my pen working again. And there we are. Can you see? Dominant Kalahari high pressure system. Okay, position of high pressure systems further north. Position of mid-latitude cyclone further north. Or you can write is approaching the coastline of South Africa. I've added this on because some of you don't notice that. All right, if we look at it down here, guys, you always take it away from them. There's a high pressure system dominating land, and there's a coastal low there, which is your berg wind conditions. Can you see how much we picked up from the synoptic map? So berg wind conditions, a coastal low is evident, not the best answer, but I want to leave this. I know it's in your memos, that you've got when you did this. I want to leave this as an option when you can't find any answers. Okay, because sometimes you do get coastal lows during summer. Okay? Let's look at the next question. Provide a suitable term to describe a series of mid-latitude cyclones. I did not make specific reference to the synoptic map because there's only 2 mid-latitude cyclones there. Mid-latitude cyclones are considered a family of cyclones when there's 3 or more. You have to have mother, father, and a baby, isn't it? So
Yeah.
that's what makes a family. So 3 or more. So I said, what consists or what's known as a series of cyclones, a suitable term? Obviously, it's a family of cyclones. All right? And you can see here they don't look very happy. There's something missing. The baby is missing. All right. So let's go on. Describe the weather associated with the cold front of a mid-latitude cyclone. Learners, what do you pick up so far already? And I know each time I'm breaking from the question to come back, is that you do need to know your concepts. If you don't know your concepts, and you'll see it in the prelim and the final, and you don't know how to apply them, you're going to have problems. So immediately in this question, cold front, already things come to your mind. Low temperatures, strong wind speeds because it's coming in, it's causing condensation, cloud formation, all right, precipitation. Okay, let's look at it down here. All right, temperature drops rapidly. Okay, wind speeds are stronger and gusty. Backing of winds means they're coming through. Increasing cloud cover, precipitation. All right, generally, these things come out for 1 mark each. The examiner was very nice in half yearly. It's a simple question, gave you 2 marks, okay, for each one. Now, one thing to note here, learners, some of you, I noticed, tend to write snow, rainfall. You understand? All that is precipitation. You're repeating an answer. So it basically, under precipitation, you can't talk about increase in rainfall, you'll get a mark. But if you write snow, you're repeating the answer of precipitation and you're not going to get a mark. All right, let's go on. Explain the positive impact that mid-latitude cyclones lying to the east of Cape Town will have on the Western Cape. A bit of a different question, eh? I know it stumps some of you. We generally speak about the negative impacts, or we speak about the positive impacts on farming. Here we have on tourism. And I know some of you missed the word out. You can't just talk about farming, but you have to talk about tourism to attract the tourists in there. Now, let's look at it. Number 1, in this area, okay, if there's an increase in rainfall, let's look at what happens. The orchards and vineyards tend to actually grow better. Grapes grows better there. And okay, and therefore the wine festivals and whatever tend to happen here, and people come in. Snow. I know last time snow fell in Johannesburg, my learners were running out of the room.
Really?
You understand? It can attract people.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
You understand? More green up vegetation, etc., because of the rainfall, makes people want to come on holiday. So there are positive aspects which can influence tourism. So let's look at them. All right, we got one here. Dams are filled with water, which will increase the recreational activities. No one wants to go to a dam that's empty. All right, fruits and apples or pears. All right, we get the orchards and vineyards where we can tour. Okay, the vineyards grow well. So the winelands and the wine festivals, people love to visit this. All right, snowfalls attract tourists, and even fishing is better during this period because fish rely on cool waters. All right, so there's so many different answers. And what we're doing here, learners, we're taking the content we know and we're applying it with the reality. Because geography is out there. You must know that, learners. You can see it happening all the time. So relate the both and you get your answers. I'm going to do a little bit of this question down here, which is a bar graph. Okay, refer to the bar graph below, showing you smoke concentration over Tshwane. Some of you know it still as Pretoria, but now it's Tshwane, over a period of 24 hours during winter, you know, subsiding air, cold, all right? So the concentrations are there. Let's look at the diagram. It gives us here hours, and here it gives us the smoke concentrations in milligrams per meter squared. Okay, let's look at this. Now, many of you look at this and say, whoa, what is this? I'm not going to choose this question. Read the questions and you should be able to answer it. All right, let's look at the first question. At what time is the smoke concentration the highest? So all I do, learners, don't avoid these questions. I look at this, all right, and I look at where the bar graph is the tallest. And it shows me at 800 hours. Simple. All right? My answer is 800 hours. Let's look at the next one. Give one possible reason for this. One possible reason for this. And some of you say, but I didn't study this totally in this section. Take reality. What happens at 8 o'clock? Aren't people going to work? Lots of vehicles on the road. What else starts? The industry start to operate, giving off lots of heat and smoke and whatever. So there's lots of activity during this time. And that's your answer, actually. It's a reality situation which you see every day. And that's your answer. So let's look at the answer here, guys. Cities' activities begin. People travel to the city to work. All right? They give off the body heat. I like that one, body heat. All right. Large numbers of vehicles emit the heat and smoke. Factories add to the pollution. All these things are happening. Therefore, the smoke concentrations are higher. I just hope people don't give off a lot of smoke on the body heat and the steam. Okay. Next question. The concentration is lower at 2400 hours. Suggest a possible reason for this. Think about at 2400 hours what's happening. Well, most of us are sleeping. I think sometimes you are not when you're studying for those tests. What's happening to the city? There's not much people moving around. Activities are less. Many industries are not operating. So things come to more or less, not totally a standstill, but generally a standstill. So the concentration of smoke will actually decrease. And there's our answer here. Little heat production, okay? Very little city activity. City is generally deserted. All right? Let's look at the next question. How will smoke released from the factories affect the temperature over Tshwane? You know it already. It will increase the temperature because smoke is heat, it's giving off, it's increasing that. List, besides the factories, give two other contributors of pollution over Tshwane. And you've learned this. You can relate it to the heat islands also that you studied. There are various things. All right, cities, activities, etc. So here we look at tarred roads, which absorb the heat. All right, concentration of buildings, multiple reflections, air conditioners, body heat. I see this examiner, I like the body heat. Right, the body heat, motor vehicles, all this give off heat. So mixing reality with your knowledge is very important in our section of geography. I'm going to take a little break now because I'm getting old and I need some water. All right?
Definitely. I also need some water, you guys, hey? I'm really enjoying the show. I'm hoping that you guys are also enjoying the show. Please bring in all of your questions that you have for us right there on our Facebook page, and also jump on over to our help desk where we can get to answer your questions. Right now, let's take a break. We'll see you after this. Welcome back from that short ad break. We are still live and doing geography for Great 12s. I know that you guys have been waiting for geography since, I don't know, 4 o'clock. And yes, we are still rolling the ball with Dave. Dave, how far along are we now?
I wish it was very long. We must knock off all these other
Yes.
subjects and do geography. You know, when I start the question, I get so passionate. I feel
And
like
then that's-
dancing. Only my
yes.
knees giving out my age.
Yeah, yeah. And the nicest thing is geography is just like everywhere.
Everywhere.
Step outside, it's just there.
Even in the studio.
Yeah.
You know, guys, I'm going to do some questions on geomorphology now. All right? And just to cover the few aspects of geomorphology, give some ideas and techniques. This came out in one of the June papers. And again, the question, refer to the figure. I know you're getting fed up of me. You maybe call me Mr. Refer soon. All right? Showing river profiles from source to mouth. Giving you a lot of information, learners, some direction. It's river profiles, and it shows you source to mouth. Already use that. You've given something, use it. So find out, whoa, where is the source? The higher area, source, mouth. Also mentions river profiles. Okay, where? Let me look at it. Right, you can see clearly, this is your longitudinal profile. This one is my cross or transverse profile. Just by the instruction itself, learners, you've picked up quite a bit of information. Okay, now we go to the diagram again. And I know some of you may be getting fed up, but I know lots of you appreciate it because you learn from this. Let's see what the diagram is given us here. Okay, it sort of gives us areas where these cross profiles or transverse profiles are happening. Whoa, this profile represents the source. Let me look at it. Yes, it's steep-sided. Can you see it? It's starting to erode the river. This one represents the upper course, the middle course. We can see it's still quite steep, but getting wider. All right, because the river is widening, there's more erosion, there's more volume of water. And here, let's look at it here. Whoa, this is representing the lower stage. You can see how wide the cross-section is. There's a relationship between that. I'm going to purposely cut off these ones, this one, and this one. Because I know it's not related here, and we're going to spend a lot of time looking at it. But we're going to look at one of the graphs here and see what it's showing us. All right? It says gradient and discharge. What do I notice on this one? Whoa, gradient is increasing this way, discharge is increasing that way. All right, so what do I notice? According to this cross profiles here, the steeper the gradient, the smaller the discharge. The gentle the gradient, the greater the discharge. I've noticed that already. All right? Let's look at the questions. Okay? Number one, explain the term longitudinal profile. Okay, and I know already. There's my longitudinal profile here. It's actually showing me the side view of it. All right? So, my answer, obviously, I can work out from the diagram again. A cross or longitudinal profile is the side view of a river system. The side view of a river system. You got your 1 mark. Make sure you mention side view. A view of a river system is actually a river profile. Okay? State the main type of erosion. The main type of erosion that occurs in the upper course. And we've already learned that, learners. The gradient is very steep. The river is coming down. It's starting to form the river. There's more energy. So obviously, in this case, in the upper course, vertical erosion is your dominant type of erosion. It's cutting in, it's steep, it's coming down. Okay? Let's look at our answer. Obviously, vertical erosion or downward erosion. I'm skipping some sections here. I'm becoming a magician also. And the sections are just jumping. I think it's my enthusiasm. All right.
Yeah.
So it's actually your side view of a river. State the main type of erosion, and we already know it's vertical or downward erosion. Why is this type of erosion dominant in the upper course? We've already answered that, learners. We said that the gradient is steep, and because the gradient is steep, it's cutting downwards. Therefore, your vertical erosion is going to be more dominant in this area. Okay, and let's look at our answer again. The valley gradient in the upper course is steep, all right, and the channel is still quite, not totally narrow, as we see it right here, but narrow. Okay, so therefore down cutting is prevalent because it's cutting downwards. Okay, let's look at the next question. At which transverse profile, which is also known as a cross profile, learners, B or C, will turbulent flow be higher? Now, learners, in cases like this, can you see again the introduction of a concept? Now, if you don't know what's turbulent flow and laminar flow, you're going to lose marks. All right, so knowing your concepts make a big difference. So let's look at it. Where will it be more turbulent? And if I look at these two places, there's my B here and there's my C here. What do I notice in these areas? B, the gradient is still relatively steep, and at C, it's gentle. So at B, at the moment, what's still dominating is your vertical erosion. You're having lateral erosion, but your vertical erosion is still dominating, and it's still eroding downwards, and it's still tearing up the surface, and there's still quite a bit of obstructions, so it's getting turbulent, a rough flow. It's still flowing. At C, the erosion, if there's any erosion, is basically more or less lateral erosion. So it's not tearing up the surface, it's widening it. So we have less obstructions. Another point, learners, which sometimes we don't realize, is that at B, there's a smaller volume of water because a certain amount of rivers, etc., have collected. But at C, it has a great amount of volume. So if my obstruction is here and the volume of water is around here, like at C, I think I pressed something.
It's at the bottom.
Restore.
Please try at the bottom. It should be somewhere
Yes,
there.
we got it again.
Yeah.
Whoa, technology. And she's studying metallurgical engineering. That's why I've got her here. All right, so if I take my little thing without pressing anything down here and changing the screen, okay, and my volume is about this height, like at B, when the water flows, the obstructions will interfere with that flow of water and making it still turbulent because near the obstructions. Let's take it at C, where the volume of water is greater. So there's my obstruction here, and the water flows. Because the volume of water is much higher than the obstruction, when it flows smoothly on the surface. And that's how you got your laminar flow. So it's also the volume of water that tends to also determine this in terms of turbulent and laminar flow. All right? So it's definitely, my answer is B. Okay? And let's look at the reasons which I've discussed already. If I look at it here, explain why this type of flow is evident in this section. And the river now has more erosive power at this stage. And the volume of water is higher at C and less at B. Okay? Let's look at another one. Identify the feature visible in the diagram associated with the lower course. Now we know where's the lower course, learners. We know this is the lower course. What sometimes learners do and actually lose marks is they know the lower course and suddenly they start thinking features, braided stream, levee, floodplain, and they choose one and they write it. Please, learners, the question does not always have to refer and say found in the diagram. The first instruction says refer to the figure, means that you must find it in the figure. So when I look at this, number one, what's clearly seen here is the flood plain. That's my feature. I would accept, because there seems to be a little bit of bumps because the diagram was not clear, I would accept levees because it seems to be elevated there, but I definitely will not accept braided streams because we don't see the braids forming in the area. So be careful, learners. Look at what's not there. But on the other hand, if you don't find anything, because maybe something is not clear, then you don't leave it blank and you put other answers there to make sure you've answered it. You never know. You could get marks for it. But first, look at what's on the diagram. Right? So when I looked at this floodplain, and in my case, I will also accept a levee because it seems as if it's sort of elevated near the river. Let's look at this one. Using the graphs, explain the relationship between stream discharge and the gradient of a river in the upper course and the lower course. Please note, two concepts have been brought in, stream discharge and the gradient, all right? And two specific areas, the upper course and the lower course. Learners, this one, generally I know learners have misjudged or got it incorrectly because of not knowing how to apply. Immediately I noticed many learners seem to talk about the discharge is greater at the source, at the upper stage, because the gradient is steep. Therefore, the water is flowing very fast. And because we don't understand the concept, we state those incorrect. Discharge does not always relate to the speed or the velocity of the water. Discharge is actually the amount of water passing a specific point in a given amount of time. So let's look at that. We know the water is flowing faster in the upper course because it's steeper. But also we need to consider, learners, where is the volume the greater? Is the volume great at the source where the river is starting? Or is the volume greater in the lower stages where all this water is accumulating? Obviously it's greater in the lower stages. So although it's going faster here, it does not mean the discharge is greater. So actually, if you look at this graph also, it interprets it nicely. According to this, the steeper the gradient, the less the discharge. The gentler the gradient, the greater the discharge. Can you see how we can work it out? We do have a resource here, but because you mix up terminology, we make those mistakes. So obviously, all right, when we look at it here, all right, the lower the discharge, the steeper the gradient. This is what we're interpreting from there. Was it specific to that? It could be different in other cases. Please examine your information before that. The steeper the gradient, the higher the discharge, the more gradual the gradient, according to this. Okay? Let's do part of another question. This is a little case study. Catchment management strategies in South Africa. Catchment management is complex. You know, it's conserving, it's managing the different catchment areas, which is important for man and the natural environment. It requires the involvement of a wide range of people, specialists such as hydrologists, ecologists, engineers, as well as provincial and local authorities. Communities all who represent the competing interests of river users. The formulation of catchment management strategies in South Africa is still in its development stage. We're actually just progressing with it now. A good catchment management strategy translates government policy, all right, as outlined by the National Water Act and Water Services Act. So it's talking about the policy itself. There's a little thing showing you the catchment and the proposed areas like a proposed dam. Then the Breeder River, this is the project that we're talking about here. The Breeder River Overberg catchment area is situated on the southwest corner of South Africa. It includes the southern tip of Africa. It consists of large, wide Breeder River and its tributaries flowing into the Breeder River estuary. So we've got even an estuary situated here, as well as small number of coastal river flowing into large estuaries. So it's getting a lot of feeding, a lot of water and fish in it, or the wetland system. A wide river valleys are flanked by mountain ranges in the north and west. Okay, I'm going to skip a few lines. All right, it describes all this area here, describes that, and then it talks about these coastal towns are important for tourism. The estuaries and rivers of this region are ecologically important for commercial fisheries, recreation, and biodiversity conservation. All right, I'm going to look at those issues, and I'm going to show you something down here. I may not read the whole article. I'm going to show you sometimes in these little case studies how much answers you can pick up from here. Let's just go to the questions, learners. All right, go to the next page. Let's look at the first one. Why is catchment management strategy so complex? Look at this one. Right, if we look at it here, catchment management is complex because it requires the involvement of a wide range of people. Exactly the answer from the article. You take it straight and you put it down. It requires the involvement of a wide range of people. So sometimes looking at these case studies, we tend to avoid those questions, but they can be very simple. They may not give you all the answers, but they'll give you so many clues. All right, I know some people may talk about alternate answers, like there's a sort of catch-22 situation. Do we sort of cater for the people's needs, or do we conserve the environment? It's always a sensitive balance there. That could also be complex. Let's look at the next question. Which government department, this is your general stuff that you would learn in the class, all right, is responsible for the health and sustainability of rivers in South Africa? Okay, you already know the Department of Water Affairs and Forestry. So sometimes you do need to know your little departments, eh? That comes through there, Water Affairs and Forestry. Let's look at the next one. Describe the type of economic activity associated with the Breeder River estuary. I want to show you this again. All right? And if I go right down or a little up, I'm sorry, I'm going ahead. And if I go right down to this one here, it talks about commercial agriculture, although not totally correct because we're talking about the estuaries, all right, but it talks about commercial agriculture. It talks about tourism, people visiting the estuary. These are all your economic factors. It talks about commercial fisheries. It talks about recreation. And you got all your answers from the case study down here. And when I look at this, learners, very quickly, I turn down and I'll show you this. And there we are, commercial agriculture, coastal towns for tourism, commercial fisheries. I would call it marks for nothing. But sometimes we are too question happy, we jump to the questions, we don't read and highlight, and that creates a problem. Age is catching up. I'm getting thirsty again. Just for water, learners, nothing else. And we'll see you soon.
Definitely just for water, guys. Please make sure that you download all of the geography questions right there on our Facebook page and stand a chance of winning yourself a Casio calculator. We'll talk more about that after this ad break. welcome back, mindsetters. I'm feeling all refreshed and ready to go as we are doing geography with Dave, of course, joining us in studio today. And it's very interesting what we're doing today, right, Jeff?
Yes, fantastic. And you know what?
Yes.
I was actually going to skip this question and get on to the challenge question. I said, let
Oh,
me keep it
yes.
here. It's dealing with catchment management. There's a catchment game, and I think you know about it. All
Yes,
right?
yeah.
Kumi, it's actually, you can play this game. It's based on simulation of catchment areas, etc. And it's unbelievable at how much better you understand
Wow.
catchment areas and management, etc. And learners, I'm sure most of you have gone on it already. But if you haven't gone on it,
Yeah.
Pumi has got a website
Yes.
for you.
Please,
Right?
guys. Sorry. Listen, guys. Please make sure that you join it by going straight to watergame.co.za. You know, Dave, if I only could join it, I was definitely going to join it because the learners are going to get to win themselves at least 5,000 rands, and that's like a lot of money.
You know, once again, teachers are not
You
allowed.
know. So we're not allowed to. So guys, please make sure that you get to join it. It's very interesting. Otherwise, Dave, let's get
You
going.
should see my car, Pumi. It's
Hey.
old, man. I
Whoa.
need that 5,000.
You could do with
I
that.
always get wrong. Anyway, learners, seeing that I'm so excited, let's just go over this question down here. All right. Suggest, let's look at it quickly. Suggest why catchment management of the Breede River and Berg River drainage basins would become important to the people living in the Overberg area. Now we're focusing on the people here and not so much on the environment. So let's look at some of the possible answers here, guys. Farming takes place in the floodplain, so the water is used for irrigation. Rivers, especially near dams, etc., are used to generate hydroelectric power. Transport of goods, maybe not so much in South Africa, but it's used, okay, for people using boats, etc. Leisure activities for fishing, canoe, river rafting. Rivers are tourist attractions. They supply for domestic use, industrial use, all right? And then obviously the health of ecosystems affects the health of man because he loses the resource. Quite a dilemma, Lannis. All right, which way do we go? Just total environmental management, or do we consider people? I hope man actually gets that balance. That we don't totally damage the environment, but we also care for the people's needs. I'm going to do some skipping, learners, because I'm too excited to go to the challenge question. All right? Okay, let's look at it. Let's see how many of you got it right. Let's go through the question again. In the transition zone, there are many dilapidated buildings which are rented out to the poor. Neither the owners nor the occupants are interested in renovating the buildings. Give reasons for your answer. Now the clue to this, and this is quite a nice question, is to know the concepts. What is a transition zone? It's a zone of change, learners. It's changing all the time. Why is it changing? Because the CBD is growing, and as the CBD is growing, certain functions are going into the transition zone, like your warehouses, some of your high-cost flats, some of your other functions, you understand, that get into the CBD because the CBD is expanding. Now, think about it, learners. If those functions are going to come into the transition zone, what's going to happen to the value of the land? It's going to increase, isn't it? So I'm an owner of the place. I'll say, I'm not going to do up my buildings because sooner or later a CBD function is going to come in and buy it, and I'm going to get a lot of money. So leave my buildings. I rent it out to people. I can still collect the rent, which is low, but I still collect it. The people then say, but why must we do up the buildings? It's not our buildings anyway, so we'll just live in it and we don't have the money. So that is your reason for why these buildings remain in a dilapidated state. All right, the occupants do not want to renovate the buildings because they do not it does not belong to them. And on the other hand, they do not have the money. And neither do the owners want to develop it because they know it's going to be sold for a higher price when the CBD's functions actually come into this area. I'm going to do a little short question as our time is actually running out. I'm going to do one question on the settlement geography. Right? And let me go, and I will look at this. This is quite interesting. What do we look at in this question, learners? We look at people and the relationship to a central place area. And we also look at where they are prepared to travel from. You understand? The local shop, the range is much smaller. People travel shorter distances. When they're going for specialized functions, they travel greater distances. All right? When they're going to a hospital, you'll notice they'll travel greater distances. But the local shop to buy their bread, etc., they will not travel greater distances. This is what we notice in terms of our service centers. Cinemas, whoa, they travel far for good movies. All right, let's look at some of the questions that could be asked on something like this. These lines are known as your desire lines. So what is the concept desire line? Let's look at it quickly. A desire line is the actual, represents the actual distance traveled to obtain a service. People travel different sort of distances to get different services. Let's look at another one. Give one reason why people are not prepared to travel great distances to purchase convenience goods. All right? What's your convenience goods? Your bread, your milk, etc. And if you know that for you to buy a loaf of bread, would you travel 80 kilometers away? It's too expensive. So what do? You travel to your nearest place. And there's quite a few shops available. So when I look at this one, the cost of the item will exceed. It will be more than the transport. All right? Because including the transport rather, it'll become too expensive. All right? And convenience goods have a smaller range. Okay, you can't go very far for it. You buy it nearby where you live. All right? Let's look at the next one. State the relationship that, state the relationship that exists between the following: the number of service centers and the order of service. So low order services, such as your centers, such as where they sell your bread and milk, obviously there'll be more shops. But where they actually have your higher order services, such as down here, okay, the order of service and the maximum distance, if it's higher order services, then people will travel greater distance. If you want to buy a car, you'll travel a greater distance. So very quickly, yes, the lower the order, all right, the greater the number of centers, you'll get more of those centers if it's lower order. And when it's related to distance, the higher the order of the service, the greater the distance people will travel. Okay? So, let's look at another question, very interesting. Discuss 2 reasons why customers do not often travel to the nearest center to obtain a particular service. Why don't they travel? Why do sometimes people buy bread 50 kilometers away? It could be various reasons. One of the reasons could be they work there. All right? It's close to the workplace. Another reason, personal preference. Another reason is quality of service, okay, that they get. There's so many reasons. Or it just could be that the cashier is good looking and they get them there. Mm-hmm. Learners, our time has run out. I hope you've picked up all the best. Keep studying hard. Make sure geography happens for you.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dave, for a brilliant show today. Guys, thank you so much for watching the show today. I know you would really love to learn more and keep learning extra, but you know how it is. All good things have to come to an end. But from me, Pumi, and of course Dave, and the rest of our team, it is bye-bye.